Hi, and welcome to Terrence's Classic Rock Corner podcast.
Nice touch.
On this particular show, I talk about classic rock albums that either had an impact on my life or rock music in general, or both. And be rest assured, there's no country or rap nonsense to be found here.
Nice touch.
So welcome to Terrence's Classic Rock Corner podcast.
Nice touch.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's the classic rock brainiac, formerly known as the Rock Sponge, named Terrence Reardon on Terrence's Classic Rock Corner podcast, a show that's gaining success and notoriety at lightning speed, and also re-editing some old episodes as Terrence Classic Rock Corner episodes. So I'm at the air episodes several times a week. I can air one once a week. So rather than me re-record a lot of things, I have a lot of old Terrence Reardon and Friends episodes in the can that I can just re-edit and take out the end friends. And I'm also going to do a little trick, a little time-traveling experiment to see if the opinion still stands or it's changed in the intervening several years since original recording. And this is a unique episode called Terrence Joining His Younger Self. And on this episode, it's going to be on an album that was originally the third recorded episode of a podcast I used to be associated with, that I was a founding member of, which are now trying to write me out of history, but the history is there on Podbean. So if they do yank those episodes, download them so you have the original versions with me included. So this was actually the third episode we recorded. And it's by a heavy metal band who has been multi-Grammy Award winners. And strangely enough, were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in their second year of eligibility. The band, Metallica. And we're going to talk about their 1988 masterpiece, And Justice for All, for its 35th anniversary, to coincide with the release of the brand's spanking new album, 72 Seasons. Yeah, so on this episode, I figured my younger self and my current self talk about And Justice for All. So I may have some bits from my younger self discussing Metallica, actually the comments of my younger self, and see if they match with a 47-year-old Terrence. So 38-year-old Terrence and 47-year-old Terrence, can they coexist? I think I can do that. And see if my opinion has changed on any of the songs I either liked or hated. So without further ado, let's dig into the review of And Justice for All, shall we? I think we should do that. Metallica's And Justice for All album was released in, some sources say, August 1988. That's according to Wikipedia, but that's a lie. It was actually released in September of 1988, according to Billboard magazine. So I'd rather go with Billboard because Billboard knew what they were doing. Wikipedia is run by a bunch of leftist, liberal, atheist buggers who are in bed with China, Biden My Time, and Obama. And that prick Soros. So And Justice for All was the fourth full-length studio album from Metallica. And yes, it was their first double album. Yeah, it was a double album released in September 1988. It was initially released as a double vinyl album. A lot of people may not believe it, but it's true. As my throat closes up. Metallica's And Justice for All album was, like I said, the band's fourth studio album and their first double album. Yeah, it was a double album back in 1988. It was released on 2 records back in the day. A lot of people are like, oh, it was a single album. Not really, because they were still pressing vinyl at that stage. So Metallica, unlike Def Leppard, who managed to squeeze 60-some-odd minutes of material onto Hysteria, and kind of made that a single album with crummy quality on the vinyl, Metallica decided to do the right thing for sonic reasons and make And Justice for All a double album with superb sound quality. And the album, clocking in at over 64 minutes, was the longest Metallica studio album up to that stage. And the album was the first Metallica album following the tragic death of bass player Cliff Burton. The looming darkness heavily influenced both of the band's leaders and co-founders, singer, songwriter, rhythm guitarist James Hetfield, and drummer, songwriter Lars Ulrich. And the lyrics to the album on the songs in the album were summed up as the band's CNN years, where both would watch the news and James would write based on what dissatisfied him. And the songs are long, and all of them were over 5 minutes, with the shortest track being the closing track and then the longest track being the second to last song in the album. And it was also the first album where bass player Jason Newsted came into the band, and they pulled a practical prank on him during the making of this album. They mixed him out of the album. And it was also the band's, like I said, their kind of more progressive rock album. And lead guitarist Kirk Hammett made significant contributions to this album as well. And this was the last album where it was credited production to all 4 members of the band: James Hetfield, Lars Ulrich, Jason Newsted, and Kirk Hammett. And this was the last time all 4 of them would work with original producer and engineer Flemming Rasmussen, who they had first worked with on 1984's masterpiece Ride the Lightning, which is my favorite Metallica album. Yeah, I concur with Pete of Sea of Tranquility on that one. That is their best album. Master of Puppets, the follow-up, they worked on as well. And he worked with them again on the And Justice for All album. And the album was recorded predominantly at one-on-one recording studios in Los Angeles, California. And was recorded during the spring of 1988 and was released by that September. And it was mixed at Bearsville Studios by Michael Barbiero and Steve Thompson. And the guys in Metallica decided to do some hazing with their new bass player on this album. They decided to mix out Jason Newsted's bass guitar parts. Did they do it as a practical joke, or what? Because Jason was audible on the band's EP that came out in '87, Garage Days Revisited, which kept Metallica fans tied over until their next full-length album, which they thankfully delivered in the good old year of 1988. And this album, like I said, was mixed at Bearsville Studios in New York by Steve Thompson and Michael Barbiero, co-produced and engineered by Flemming Rasmussen. One of the assistant engineers was Toby Wright, who would gain fame for his work with Alice in Chains in later years. And the album was mastered at mastering was done at Masterdisc in New York City by one Bob Ludwig, who did the mastering on the Elektra Records version of Ride the Lightning when that album was reissued in late 1984 as the first Metallica major label release. Bob Ludwig was given the task of remastering Ride the Lightning for the first time for major label release, and I think his mastering on Ride the Lightning was better than that Wayne dude at Frankfurt Mastering, wherever it was, who did the original mastering of the album, where it sounded a little too harsh. But Bob Ludwig, a man who's done mastering work for the likes of Rush, Dire Straits, Bruce Springsteen, Led Zeppelin, AC/DC. He's done a lot of great mastering work on albums over the years, including remasters for the Ozzy Osbourne catalog in the 90s. Trying to think of other bands. Journey he worked with. He didn't work with Iron Maiden. He did work with... he did work with Iron Maiden. He didn't work with Judas Priest, though. The Eagles he would later work with. Trying to think of who else. Peter Frampton he did remasters for. Supertramp albums, Brother Where You Bound, everything from Brother Where You Bound to Some Things Never Change was mastered by Bob Ludwig. So Bob Ludwig has had a good track record of mastering rock albums. And going into the world of heavy metal was not that far of a stretch. And Bob Ludwig also did the mastering on many classic Rolling Stones albums, including Tattoo You, trying to think, the remasters from 1994 released on Virgin EMI. So he's done a lot of classic album mastering and or remastering. So Bob Ludwig has a track record. And this album would be the last thing Bob would master for the band until the remaster of the Black Album in 2021 during lockdown. And spoiler, he's done the mastering on the band's brand spanking new album, 72 Seasons. So with the album finished, ready for release, they did preview one song on the tour they did with Van Halen, Scorpions, Dokken, and Metallica, which I'll talk about in the review. But my backstory with this album was spring 1989. By that point, I had already heard and owned Master of Puppets on cassette. Got that as a Christmas present in December of 1987 by my late oldest sister Tony's ex-boyfriend, Peter Sanasuaso. He gave me his copy of Master of Puppets as a Christmas present. So I play it, and my 11-year-old ears automatically pricked up and was like, wow, this is great. You know, because unlike many 11-year-old kids, I was listening to real music. I didn't fall for the Bon phony, toxic crap. I mean, I'll give Cinderella a pass because Night Songs was a great hard rock, blues rock album. And also, Great White at that time had not sold out to the corporate devil by that point. Because Once Bitten was a great record as well. But 1988 was the full year I got full stop into real hard metal. Metallica was a game changer. Iron Maiden was a game changer. Judas Priest. So those bands I got into during the 1987 time frame when I was 11, after my parents divorced. So I was hearing, Metallica was releasing a double album, and Justice for All, and was kind of nervous about getting the album, so I held off until one became a hit. Then my half-brother, who I'm forever grateful to him getting me into Metallica, properly with getting me into this album, I should say, played me in Justice for All during spring vacation in this month 34 years ago, that I enjoyed the album so much, I made a recording of it. Then I got my first copy at a Ames department store in Brattleboro, Vermont, when I was dropping the said brother off at rehab. But that copy was an Elektra Records cassette copy, pressed at Alliance Recording, which was a pressing plant for Warner Music, for cassettes and vinyl back in the day. And that copy lasted me a month. It deteriorated. The tape wasn't working properly. The writing on the tape was worn thin. So a month later, in June of '89, I got my second copy, which was a SR, which stood for Specialty Recordings Press, on cassette. And that copy lasted me for many, many, many years. And that copy wound up being the keeper of the cassette copies I had of And Justice for All of the two tapes I had over the years. And this album, still to this day, my second favorite Metallica album, because with each remastering, well, the original mastering was amazing, which was brilliantly done, like I said, by Bob Ludwig, so I had the original cassette and the original CD, which I stole from an ex-buddy, Jason Simmons, because he had two copies of the same album on CD. So I took one of his CD copies. He didn't seem to notice because he had duplicates of everything, because he just sometimes would misplace and not know what the hell he was doing. But to my advantage, I was sneaky like that. I was like the Grinch. I was ruthless as a teenager. And then it was remastered by the late George Marino. That remastering in the mid-90s was a little too harsh. Sounded a little too hard on the ears. And I know he was their mastering engineer up through 2000. And then sadly, they would not ever work with him again after Garage Inc. No disrespect to the dead, George Marino did a lot of mastering work on a lot of classic albums, but sadly he passed away from lung cancer. God rest his soul. And then the album was remastered again in 2018 by Gavin Lurson, who's done a lot of great mastering work, remastering as well. He did the Toto vinyl remasters in recent years. And this remaster of And Justice for All is astounding. So when I reheard this album in its remastered state as it was remastered in 2018, it was like hearing the album all over again for the first time, but with a fresh set of ears. Now, with the means of technology, let's talk about the album and see what my younger self thinks of the songs and what my current self think of the songs. So let's begin proceedings with Blackened. Terrence from 2014, what's your take? Alright, Blackened is the opening song on And Justice for All, best song on the album. When I first heard this as a 13-year-old made in April of '89, I was like, what the hell is this? You know, the backward guitar, and then into the killer rocker that it is. James Hetfield writing about the environment, which was a different topic for James, because up to that point, most of the Metallica songs were about either death or rebellion or what have you, and war, your typical themes of metal, but great themes if you ask me. The song, you know, the twists and turns, it sort of goes in like mid-tempo for the, you know, the revelation, da-da-da-da, that section, and then the first guitar solo, and then thinking the song's going to be that way, it goes back into the melody and riff of the first part with Kirk Hammett going into town on his lightning speed guitar solo, which always hits me right here every time I hear it. And a little known fact, Metallica now have their own record label, which is named after this particular song, called Blackened Recordings. And it's distributed by Universal outside the US, and it's distributed by Warner Music here in the States and our friends in Canada. And they re-released all of the Metallica albums on Blackened Recordings in the last year, as well as their current live release through the Never, which is, I still say Binge and Purge was the better live album, but we'll talk about that another day. But Blackened, a kick-ass tune. Well, Terrence from 2014, you said it about Blackened. It is a great tune. I apologize if my younger self was swearing a lot. It was because of the show I was on. Profanity was the norm. But there's more to add to Blackened, which I don't think I had a chance to talk about in the original episode because I was stuck with a couple of guys who were cracking mom and fat jokes ad nauseum. But thanks to Genius.com, which is better research anyway than Wikipedia, which Wikipedia is run by liberal scumbags, and Genius.com is more conservative. Here's the story of Blackened, written by James Hetfield, Lars Ulrich, and Jason Newsted, which was his only songwriting credit on the whole album, and he wrote that killer riff, that da 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 da. Oh my god, what a killer riff! And the song, James Hetfield gave a morbid account of what the future could hold for planet Earth. Although this song was written in 1986, 87, 88 during the Cold War era, the lyrics still hold true today. Even more so now that history is sort of repeating itself with that psychopath Putin in power in Russia. And basically, we don't have a powerful leader to stand up to him. We did with Donald Trump, but Biden is so weak. He's nimble. He's fragile. And Putin is just a psychopath. And Trump at least had the balls to stand toe-to-toe with him and say, hey, you don't cut the crap on invading countries, I'm going to nuke you. You know? But some things never change. In fact, things are worse today than they were back in 1987-88 when this song was written. Mutually assured destruction was a commonly discussed political topic at the time. However, the lyrics suggest that mad, not angry mad, not crazy mad, not cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs mad, but MAD, mutually assured destruction, was hypocritical, contradictory to fixing the real problem, and that carrying it out only served to bring about the death of all of our life on our planet via nuclear winter. The term blackened actually meant to scar by burning, decay, or bruising. You can imagine hundreds of sudden nuclear weapons detonations scarring the planet forever, blackening it. James Hetfield got a little political on this track and spins the topic into this killer thrash metal epic. And yeah, everything about the song is great. The backward guitar intro. I think they should have bookended the album with that guitar part forward to give the album a bookend effect, seeing it was the band's first double album. And like all the other songs on this album, it contains so many guitar layered tracks to the breaking point where it drowns out the bass guitar. And Jason Newsted's bass playing would actually be brought up on the next album, aka the Black Album, but it was intentionally mixed out by Flemming Rasmussen, who was the mixing engineer on this album, or the main engineer, or actually it was Steve Barberio who did the mixing of this album. No, take that back, Michael Wagner. It starts out with the monstrous riff breaking into the halftime long interlude where Kirk Hammett unleashes one of his best solos, then back to the double time where Kirk unleashes yet another solo. And some of these lyrics are just, oh my goodness. And there's only 3 verses. Blackened is the end, winter will send, throwing icy into obscurity, death of Mother Earth, never her rebirth, evolution's end, never will it mend, never. And of course, the chorus, fire to begin whipping, dance of the dead, blackened is the end, to begin whipping, dance of the dead, call our world blackened. Second verse, blustering of earth, terminate its worth, deadly nicotine kills what might have been. Callous, frigid chill, nothing left to kill, never seen before, breathing nevermore. Then another chorus, a repeat of that chorus, and then a blackened into the bridge, which was opposition, contradiction, premonition, compromise, agitation, violation, mutilation, planet dies, darkest colored, blistered earth, the truth, death of life. Then termination, expiration, cancellation, human race. Expectation, liberation, population laid away, see our mother put to death, see our mother die. Then those blistering solos, which kicked everybody right in the boo-boo. And then smolder and decay, take her breath away, millions of our years, in minutes disappears, darkening in vain, decadence remains. All is said and done, never is the sun, never. And this song has been played by Metallica in many concerts over the years, since its release. And this song would actually lend the name of the band's own record label, Blackened Records, which is their own record label they've had now for quite a while. And, everything's been re-released under the Blackened umbrella. And then they also did, during lockdown, a acoustic version of the song called Blackened 2020, which had to do with the COVID-19 epidemic, which I blame China, those buggers for. Just like I blame the epidemic of fentanyl from Mexico. Speedy Gonzales and Fu Manchu, the 2 plagues of society. I shouldn't be harsh. But yeah, the song Blackened, amazing, killer, original, live, the re-recording, either version of the song is epic. And this song is one of the long songs in this album. None of the songs are below 6 minutes on this album. Actually, one song is over 5+ minutes. The rest are like 6, 7, 8, 9. And I think one song clocks in at 10 minutes. But Blackened, killer way to open the album. So first, let's let my 2014 counterpart introduce to you all the title cut. Next is the title epic, literally epic. Another one of my favorites on the album. Begins with the, clean electric guitar, do-do-do-do-do, and then all of a sudden it gets heavy, and then it keeps going like that for like the first 2 minutes, and then for the verse section it's a little faster tempo. And I can't believe the things you say. And the chorus was always something that struck me on first listen and still hits me today, 20 some odd years later. Justice is lost, justice is raped, justice is done. I go, couldn't have said it better myself. The guitar solos, the song, just an excellent, excellent song. Thankfully one that I don't really hear on the radio much these days, because there's a Metallica show every night here where I live up here in New England, and some Metallica songs they burn out from the old catalog. Luckily, the title track to Injustice is not one of them. Well, my 2023 counterpart, his opinion on the song has not changed. I still think the song is killer. And then again, I love progressive rock, those long, epic tunes. Keeps my attention going because, loving those songs where they have changes in dynamic, or as the British would call, light and shade. And the lyrics of the song dealt with how the rich and powerful corrupt justice system and the legal system and abuse for their own ends, much to the detriment of the poor and the vulnerable. And this song was written by, as if I'm not mistaken, James Hetfield, Lars Ulrich, and Kirk Hammett, I believe. No, producer Fleming... Oh, take that back. The song was written by... Hey, wait for it. Yeah, I was right. Kirk Hammett, Lars Ulrich, and James Hetfield. And the song, according to Genius.com, they claimed it was long and dour and depressing. I disagree. The song is excellent. I've always loved the song. Still love it to this day. I don't ever get tired of it. I think it's because radio don't have the balls to play it, pardon my language. But I love the tune. Long and dour? Whatever. The song is a masterpiece. The song remained out of circulation in Metallica concerts following the 1988-89 Justice for All tour because Kirk Hammett said, "I couldn't stand watching the front row start to yawn by the 8th or 9th minute." It's because they wanted, they wanted to hear Battery or Whiplash or Creeping Death again. Bands have to evolve, because if they kept doing short, thrashy things, some fans would be like, oh, they're too predictable. So they threw a little tripwire, and some fans like me loved it right away. And then there were some people like my former podcast colleague who I disagreed with on this tune who did not like it. In fact, this was the first disagreement him and I had, was on this particular tune, because this was actually the third album we covered on that show I used to be involved with. He may write me out of the history, but I'm trying to reiterate my part of the show's history to correct my young counterpart, who was under the influence of those guys. And Kirk Hammett said the fans didn't like it. But 19 years later, during the Death Magnetic Tour, which was the album and tour where the band got their balls back and Rick Rubin reminded them what a killer thrash metal band they were. God bless Rick Rubin. He did save Metallica's career. He was a career saver. He saved Metallica's ass. He told them to go back to thrash, or the fans were just going to kill them, lynch them. Because they were lynched for the alternative rock leanings of Load and Reload, and that Atrocity Saint Anger, which cashed in on the new metal Korn, Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park Disturbed sound so popular back then. But by Death Magnetic, Metallica went back to their classic sound, which, thankfully, they've stuck with ever since. That's the Metallica I love. The songs in normal keys, standard tuning, guitar solos, And like I said, Death Magnetic, in my opinion, was the best album since And Justice for All. And, the song ironically returned to the setlist during the Death Magnetic Tour. And its presence in all but one show on the Metallica by Request tour, where fans picked what would be played, the title cut to And Justice for All found its audience eventually. And there was some other things I forgot to mention about where the album was recorded. According to Jason Newsted, recording And Justice for All was a very special time in his life. It was when James Hetfield and him were first becoming friends. He was someone he looked up to greatly before he joined the band. They all did. Anybody in other bands, even the guys in bands around us like Exodus and Violence, they looked up to James. He was just a special gifted person, still is. We were in my one-room bed apartment at old 4-track Tascam set up in the corner of the bedroom. We were just jamming our guitars, just played through some riffs, and he played the riff that became the Blackened riff, and he goes, "What's that?" And because it was really pretty crazy, picked up on it, and they recorded that and said, "Let's build upon it," which they did. And it turned into a Metallica tune, and the rest was history. And the studio where the album was recorded, which was And Justice for All, was recorded at One-on-One Studios, which has been bought out eventually by Ecstasy Records and was renamed to Ecstasy Recording Studios after that record label. But the lyrics, back to And Justice for All, I had a sidetrack for a second. The verse, halls of justice painted green, money talking, power wolves beset your door, hear them stalking, soon you'll please their appetite they devour, hammer of justice crushes you overpower. Then the pre-chorus, the ultimate in vanity, exploiting their supremacy, I can't believe the things you say, I can't believe the price you pay. And then the chorus, nothing can save you, justice is lost, justice is raped, justice is done. Pulling your strings, justice is done, seeking no truth, winning is all, find it so grim, so true, so real. Killer lyrics by Hetfield. One of my favorite heavy metal lyricists. Verse 2, apathy, their stepping stone so unfeeling, hidden deep animosity so deceiving, through your eyes their light burns, hoping to find, Inquisition sinking you with prying minds. Then a repeat of the pre-chorus, the chorus, and then the instrumental break where they go into various different things, including Kirk Hammett's amazing guitar solo, then playing the intro riff again with some odd time changes. That's another reason why I love this tune. It cries out progressive rock greatness in the world of heavy metal. I mean, I think that's what happened with my former podcast colleague from Florida. He does not like tempo changes, whereas I'm a fan of that stuff. You know, because if everything was just done in one tempo or one time signature, it'd be quite boring. Although I do enjoy a lot of songs in a fixed tempo. But when you throw a curveball, you're like, wow, I didn't see this coming. Sheesh. It goes from this to this. I think the guys in Metallica, were listening to a lot of progressive rock at the time of this album's creation. And it shows. And Cliff Burton was a huge progressive rock fan. Sadly, he passed away 2 years earlier in that ill-fated bus crash in Sweden, which I'll talk about that when I do Master of Puppets at some point. But we're talking And Justice for All here. The title track to And Justice for All, amazing, killer. And then the final verse, Lady Justice has been raped, truth assassin, rolls of red tape, seal your lips, now you're done in. The money tips or scale again, make your deal. Just what is truth I cannot tell, cannot feel. Then a repeat of the pre-chorus, then the chorus again, and then the outro, seeking no truth, winning is all, find it so grim, so true, so real. What a killer way to end the song, and to end side one of the vinyl record. Yes, folks, this was side one of the album only had 2 songs on the album, the vinyl record. Most people don't believe it. You know, my former podcast colleague, the guy in Washington State, says, you know, side one of the cassette is not done. But I'm talking about the vinyl record version of the album because this was the first Metallica album released on vinyl. I mean, it was the 4th and final album released on vinyl in the States initially. But the title track to And Justice for All, killer tune. Now we flip vinyl 1 to side 2 of the original Elektra album and the 2018 remastered blackened vinyl version of the album. And we talk about Eye of the Beholder. Terrence from 2014, give your opinion first.
Eye of the Beholder, which is the 3rd song on side 1 of the cassette, 3rd song on the CD, and 1st song on side 2 of the original vinyl record. It's not a bad tune. It's not the greatest Metallica song either, but it's not their worst. It's the at the beginning does kind of get annoying, but the singing of James Hetfield makes up for it. Do you see what I see? Truth is an offense. And then I like it how it does change into the slower thing for the chorus. No matter how I say, and then into the freedom of choice. You know, I like the changes, although the did get kind of annoying, but the way that the song changes, has a bit of changes here and there, make the song listenable. But there are worse Metallica songs, believe me. Hint, Load and Reload.
Well, folks, this is the first song on the album where my opinion has changed. For the better. In the 9 years since I did this review, this song was written by, again, like the previous track, Kirk Hammett, Lars Ulrich, and James Hetfield. And it begins with the band jamming on that riff, the dun 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 dun, fading in. It's one of the unique tricks about songs. It was one of the few songs I've heard that had songs that faded in just like that. Other examples would be Something Special by Steve Miller Band, King of Hollywood by the Eagles. Trying to think. King of Hollywood by the Eagles. Something Special by the Steve Miller Band. Oh My God by the Police. Whereas the Steve Miller and Eagles songs had songs that faded. Those songs faded out just like they faded in. The Police one, the other instruments faded out except for the alto saxophone. I'll talk about that song in the future. And then this song, Eye of the Beholder, which is about politicians, special interest groups controlling your freedom of speech and expression. Some things haven't changed there because the Democrats now are the ones doing the cancel culture, controlling what you say, what you feel. And these leftists are now what the so-called right used to be. It's just one of the strangest dichotomies, and it started with Tipper Gore. That piece of work. And the song, again, like much of this album, is classic. In fact, the first verse, you hear James Hetfield's voice drenched in flange. Do you see what I see? Truth is an offense. You silence for your confidence. Do you hear what I hear? Doors are slamming shut. Limit your imagination. Keep you where they must. Do you feel what I feel? Bittering distress. Who decides what you express? Do you take what I take? Endurance is the word. Moving back instead of forward seems to me absurd. Then it goes into something else for the dun. Doesn't matter what you see or intuit what you read. You can do it your own way if it's done just how I said. Into that independence, limited freedom of choice is made for you, my friend. Freedom of speech is words that they will bend freedom with their expression. Then we have the second verse. Do you fear what I fear? Living properly. Truths to you are lies to me. Do you choose what I choose? More alternatives. Energy derives from both the plus and negative. Amen, James. You got that right. Do you need what I need? Boundaries overthrown. Look inside to each his own. Do you trust what I trust? Me, myself, and I penetrate the smoke screen I see through the selfish lie. Then a repeat of the pre-chorus. And a repeat of the chorus. Then we have that killer guitar solo again by the MVP, Kirk Hammett, who is just shredding like a hornet that had water spilled on him and going off trying to sting everybody and their mother. And then the third and final verse, do you know what I know? Your money and your wealth, you silence just to hear yourself. Do you want what I want? Desire not a thing. I hunger after independence, lengthen freedom's ring. Oh my goodness. Then a repeat of the pre-chorus, the chorus, and then the outro as a final repeat of the pre-chorus, and then the song ending with a da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And this song was actually released as the second and final single from the album here in the United States. I don't know if it was the first single or the second single released in this country, but I do know it was a single, and it had a non-album track B-side, which I'll talk about when I'm done with the songs on this actual original album. Come to think of it now and listening back to it so many years later, after the original review I did back in 2014, my opinion on this song has just gotten better of it. I think it's a great song, amazing, I love the flow of it. It just sounds better now than it did back at the time. But then again, because I don't listen to classic rock radio, and I'll go into a little mini rant right now, I know some of you love those rants, but classic rock radio kind of ruins a lot of great music. They play the same songs ad nauseum. I mean, you turn on every classic rock station, they play the same old crap. Then again, SiriusXM is guilty of that as well. Listening to this album in the car, on my USB port, in the CD for the house, I'll just play the album top to bottom. Because looking back at this album now, there is no bad moment on it. And Eye of the Beholder, which, like I said, was the first single from the album here in the States, great tune. I think it's awesome. Kind of overlooked in the grand scheme of Metallica tunes over the years. And it was played on the Injustice for All tour. But since then, kind of overlooked in the grand scheme of all things Metallica. But Eye of the Beholder, always for the win. Now we come to the end of Vinyl 1, Closer 1, which is song number 2 on side 2 of the original vinyl record, song number 4 on side 1 of the cassette, and song number 4 on the CD. So first, as always, I'll let my younger counterpart from 2014 give his opinion, then I will be back with mine in my current state. Terrence from 2014, off you go.
Okay, 1. The song that gave Metallica new fans. I mean, luckily I heard the song before it became a hit, thanks to my estranged brother. The song, in its full glory, the full 7 minutes, excellent. The video, kind of chopping out a lot of the good bits, especially the outro where James Hetfield and Kirk Hammett do the twin lead guitar. They kind of remind me of Thin Lizzy come Judas Priest, Iron Maiden with the twin harmony leads at the end after Kirk Hammett's solo, where they're doing that, you know, it just reminded me so much of Priest, Lizzy, and Maiden's twin guitar attack. That, you know, that part alone where it gets faster, that's the best part of the song, and the video chopped that off. Unless you saw the full 8-minute video, which MTV didn't have the balls to play much because they were more interested in showing that hag Madonna. Why? I don't fucking know, but one kicks ass.
Sheesh, did I really sound like that? God. I kind of sound embarrassed about the way I used to sound back then. I mean, I'm proud of my opinion. My opinion hasn't changed on this tune, but I really didn't get a chance to delve my brainiac self into it because of dealing with the aforementioned guys. But my opinion on one hasn't changed in the almost 34 years since I first heard this tune. Yeah, this month, 34 years ago, I first got the Injustice for All album on cassette. So it's like, well, you know, and it was basically because of a half-brother I used to be associated with that had the album and kind of piped up my interest and basically never looked back and became a Metallica fan. And this song here, One, written by James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich. And was it co-written by James? No, it was just written by James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich. And the song was based on the novel Johnny Got His Gun by Dalton Trumbo. And there, the character of Joe Bonham, no relation to the great Led Zeppelin drummer John Bonham, may he lay in peace, was a soldier in World War I and was hit by a landmine explosion that takes away his limbs and face and becomes a prisoner in his own body. Joe lost his senses and cannot communicate, but is still kept alive by the medical crew, thus the lyrics follow his plea to be put out of his misery. And a specific passage that inspired the song was, how could a man lose as much of himself as I have and still live? When a man buys a lottery ticket, you never expect him to win because it's a 1,000,000-to-1 shot. But if he does win, you believe it's because 1 in a million still leaves one. If I'd read about a guy like me in the newspaper, I wouldn't believe it because it's a 1,000,000-to-1, but a 1,000,000-to-1 always leaves one. I never expected it to happen to me because the odds of it happening are 1,000,000-to-1, but a 1,000,000-to-1 always leaves one. And the song actually marked the first time the band did a music video for their tune. And the video featured footage from the film adaptation of Johnny Got His Gun, directed by Trumbo himself, which the band bought the rights for to make it incorporating the film footage much easier. And I believe it was directed by Tim Pope, the actual band footage. And the song was not in the movie, but the movie did predate the song by 17 years. And Metallica, and the music video, they made 2 videos for it. One incorporating the Johnny Got His Gun footage, and the other was just the band jamming away on the single edit. But then the MTV edit incorporated the single edit and select footage from the film and the band just jamming out. Very few times did I see the original full 8-9 minute video, because it wasn't until sometime in the summer of '89 that I would see the full video for the first time. And as I was saying to my grandmother's for a week in June '89, seeing that full 8-minute version, I was just like, pardon my language, holy shit, that video was epic. Probably my favorite video of 1989. That and I Want It All by Queen was my other favorite video that year. Oh boy. Boy, did rock music videos back then kick a lot of ass, and you didn't have to spend $1 zillion to make an elaborate film. Unlike these horse fuckers, pardon my language, I didn't mean to say that, Drake and Bad Bunny and Taylor Swift and all those clowns. Metallica, they just, in those days, just put on black clothing, went to their instruments and just jammed in a rehearsal space as film footage was spurned in, And then I also liked on the song, killer tune, Kirk Hammett's guitar solo at the end, and at the very end, the harmony guitars of Kirk Hammett and James Hetfield. The two are playing the that part in harmony, kind of like Thin Lizzy twin harmony guitars. And James just rocking out when he looked like the Cowardly Lion in that's an in-joke. When he looked like the Cowardly Lion in what was it? Oh yeah, The Wizard of Oz. Oh man. And Lars bashing the hell out of that big Tama kid of his, Jason Newsted, head banging, playing that bass, and Kirk Hammett just soloing on that ESP that looked like a Stratocaster. Oh my god. Love the tune, love the video. They performed this song at the Grammy Awards in 1989, where they got, let's just say they lost to a progressive rock band, Jethro Tull, on their album Crest of a Knave. Whilst a great album, not as great as Injustice for All, to set the record straight. But oh my god, no matter how many times I've heard one, I don't ever get tired of it. In fact, the band has played it just about in every tour they've done since its release. And they're probably going to be playing it on the 72 Seasons tour, which I hope I come out of concert retirement to go. If that happens, it'll be my first concert in 5 years, but I'll keep you posted. But, oh man, this song owns. Epic, killer, kick-ass. I think I've covered all the bases. One for the win. Now we grab record 2, or flip cassette to side 2. You grab record 2 and put on side 3, which would be song number 5 of the CD, The Shortest Straw. Let's hear my 2014 counterpart, his interesting opinion on this tune. Terrence from 2014, say what you gotta say.
And I get to introduce the next song, and it's a song that I am very, 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 very annoyed with now, The Shortest Straw, which began side 3 of the original vinyl record. The reason I'm annoyed with it now is because that far right-wing lunatic, Michael Savage, uses it as his entrance theme. Now I cannot hear the song without thinking of that Savage Nation. I loved it many years ago, but now I'm like, I cannot hear that song without thinking of that right-wing fear-mongering freak.
Ouch. That was harsh. Calm down, pal. Take it easy. I think the problem with 2014 Terrence was he was kind of burned out from hearing just isolated riffs of the song on political talk radio, especially if you were sitting in the car with your father, listening to political talk radio every day for the whole time you lived in Florida. Oh my god. And I'm not a left-winger, folks, but I did not like living in Florida after a while. Oh my goodness, everyone's like, how can you make fun of Florida? Very easy. Yeah, that's why it's called Florida, because there's a lot of people who live there. And all that they had on radio was talk radio, Savage Nation. He played that song, the intro riff and the outro, ad nauseum. But since I stopped listening to the radio I don't listen to terrestrial radio anymore anyway. I don't listen to talk radio, I don't listen to nothing. I just play entire albums while I'm driving. And I took a break from this album for a number of years in this song. And my opinion on the song has changed dramatically since. I kind of dug it at first, then I hated it. Now I love it. Yeah, strange things have happened in 9 years. My opinion on this song has changed for the better. I think it's because at the time I did the review, I was still coming off of listening to terrestrial radio a lot. Now, since I don't listen to terrestrial radio anymore, I went back to this album when the album was re-released as a remastered 3-CD set in 2018 and re-listened to the album for the first time in many years, start to finish, and I was like, God, this song is great. And the lyrics of the song continues the theme of the album. The Shortest Straw, which was written by James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich, if memory serves me correctly. Yes, it's Hetfield and Ulrich once again. The song is a scathing critique of the blacklisting of people with controversial political opinions. And James Hetfield angrily tells the story of a man discriminated against in what's supposed to be a free society. And of course the chorus, shortest straw, challenge liberty, down by law, live in infamy, rub you raw, witch hunting, riding through the shortest straw has been pulled for you, pulled for shortest straw. And then, oh my goodness, killer chorus. And then, suspicion is your name, your dishonesty to blame, put dignity to shame, dishonor, which on modern day, determining decay, the blatant disarray, disfigure, the public's eyes disgrace, define uncommonplace, unending paper chase, unending, oh my goodness, deafening, painstaking, reckoning, this vertigo it doth bring. And then the second verse, the accusations fly, discrimination why, your inner self to die, intruding, double sink itself in you, its teeth and talons through your living catch-22, diluting a mass hysteria, a megalomania, reveal dementia, reveal, pre-chorus, secretly, silently, certainly, in vertigo you will be. Killer guitar solo again after the second chorus. Oh my goodness. And then the post-chorus, and then another post-chorus after the first guitar solo, and then another guitar solo, and then the third and final verse, behind you, hands are tied, you're being ostracized, your hell is multiplied, upending, the fall has begun, oppressive damage done, you turn to none, to nothing, you're reaching, you're an nadir, you will have disappeared, the lie is crystal clear, defending, channels red, one word said, blacklisted, with vertigo, make you dead. Whew! It's not Tiptoe Through the Tulips lyrics. And it sure as hell isn't Britney Spears, Katy Perry type lyrics of, play with your peacock. Oh my goodness, or that hurt them singing about basically performing sexual acts. And the song basically specifically referred to the Red Scare of the 1950s when the U.S. government and private companies teamed up to single out politicians and activists they suspected of having communist sympathies. Many times, these anti-communist politicians, especially Senator Joseph McCarthy, used the Red Scare to get rid of their political opponents. And some Metallica fans claim that the song was a reference to the death of their second bass player, Cliff Burton. The original bass player was Ron McGovney, but he didn't record any material with them. But Cliff Burton was there on the No Life to Leather demo and the Kill 'Em All album, Ride the Lightning, and sadly he passed away during the tour for Master of Puppets. And some versions of his passing involved Kirk Hammett and Burton playing a game of chance, or picking a card out of a bundle to determine who would sleep where on the tour bus they were traveling on. And therefore Burton had the shortest straw pulled for him. The connection remains unconfirmed by the band, but his passing does play a role in the album as a whole, especially in one song where, again, my opinion has changed substantially for the better. Another song, in fact, two more songs' opinions have changed because I took a break from this album and things change. But now, since Shortest Straw has gone from me despising it to me digging it and loving it more now, I did love it as a 13-year-old, then I hated it for a while. Now I love it again because I took a long break, went back to it with a fresh pair of ears, and I'm like, this isn't so bad. It's just political talk radio pundits, they kind of like to ruin things for people. But anyway, I digress. Shortest Straw, great tune. Now, let's see what 2014 Terrence has to say about Harvester of Sorrow. Take it away.
Okay, I'll start Harvester of Sorrow next. Harvester of Sorrow is the next song and one of my favorites on the album. It just begins with the da 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 da. Just the guitar riffs, the chorus is punchy. Harvester of Sorrow, language of the mad. And I've always liked the song, and it's just a good song, great riff, excellent playing from the band, and like I said, the guitar riff is just hooky. It's punchy, and I kind of like hooky and punchy things. But Harvester of Sorrow, Excellent song.
2014, Terrence, I couldn't agree with you more. The song is awesome, and one of the slowest songs Metallica ever wrote. And it's about a man who suffers abuse during his childhood, something that had traumatized him throughout his adulthood. The aforementioned trauma descends him into madness, and he decides to murder his family. And the song focuses on the topic of domestic violence and abuse, and highlights the effect trauma can have on someone once they grow older. And a lot of people can go through trauma and domestic violence and abuse, or child abuse, or teenage abuse, or peer pressure abuse, or whatever. I mean, I could relate to the song in a way. You know, I mean, I came from a family from parents that divorced, and did see some siblings get abused, but it's because they were doing stupid, childish crap. You know, sneaking out of the bedroom window, going out to defy the army sergeant father. I was the last of 8 kids, so I was kind of like scared straight very early on in life. Plus, having high-functioning autism really altered the way I grew up. Not for the worse, but for the better. You know, because I had seen my 7 oldest siblings in some way, shape, or form defy my parents. I couldn't, and since I had a disability, my parents couldn't really, well, my father couldn't really beat me to a pulp. I mean, yeah, him and I did have a few rows over the years, and a few, dare I say it, fights, but it's because, you know, in the Irish side of things, you fight. But then again, I actually beat the hell out of a teacher when I was a 14-year-old. That's a true story, because the teacher in question called one of my friends the C word. And that's a no-no with me. The same teacher that called my late oldest sister fat, he called my friend, who was similar in size to my eldest sister, who's now passed away, called the person who was the same size as my sister a fat C word. And then the guy then proceeds to call me, and a couple hours later, the R word. So when he called me the R word, I literally went spastic and literally beat the living hell out of the guy. So yeah, that's a reputation I cannot ever live down. I beat up a teacher and I lived to tell the tale. Whew. This song, when I first heard it back in 1989, hit me on first listen. Loved it then, love it now. In fact, Metallica premiered the song months before the album was released. They were playing it at the Monsters of Rock Festival, which they shared the bill with Scorpions, Dokken, Kingdom Come, aka the band that a lot of people call the Led Zeppelin knockoff. At least Kingdom Come were a generic 80s hard rock band who had some balls, unlike Greta Van Fleet, who were basically Led Zeppelin ripoffs. At least Kingdom Come did not go into the wearing the stage attire that Zeppelin wore, whereas Greta Van Fleet has done that and then some. And Kingdom Come were a 5-piece. And the headliners of that tour were Van Halen. Not Van Hagar, Van Halen. But yeah, I know it was with Sammy Hagar, but hey, at least on the OU812 tour, Alex Van Halen went back to playing acoustic drums again, which was good. And my oldest brother Sean saw Metallica on that said Monsters of Rock tour and said they were loud. And at the time, he did not like Metallica. He goofed on Last Caress, and he said, that lame-ass Harvester of Sorrow. He wound up having to eat humble pie after he himself became a fan quite a few years later with the Black Album. But I was into Metallica before him, so he was like, oh, you shouldn't see Metallica. I'm like, why not? They sound cool. He's like, oh, that lame-ass song, Language of the Man. I'm like, then I heard it, I was like, Harvester of Sorrow is actually a killer tune. Oh my goodness, some things haven't changed. I still love the tune. The band still holds it highly in regard. And not much more to add to Harvester of Sorrow. But yeah, it was released as a single in the UK and in Europe, but was not released as a single here in the States. I don't know why. This was the first single from the album in the UK and Europe, but not a single in the US of A. I think Elektra Records did not want to put out a song with a serious topic like domestic violence and abuse. But the thing is, I've managed to break the cycle of abuse. And that's the thing. Most people who those who are abused, it's not like they grow up thinking they're going to be abused. And those who abuse their kids, it's not because they were born to go, I'm going to beat the hell out of this kid now. Or marry a woman and go, I'm going to beat the living hell out of this woman now. What are they doing? The reason they do what they do is because they may have been beaten when they were kids or abused when they were kids, or they saw their parents being abused or their siblings being abused or whatever. Or they were, they may have been abused by their peers. And the thing is, these things of abuse have gone on through the pages of history, and we ignore the lessons. I mean, at least I learned the lessons as an observer, being the youngest of 8, that I couldn't defy my parents. So instead I took my furor out on teachers. But my God, Harvester of Sorrow, killer tune, awesome tune, not much more I can add. Now, let's end side 3 of the vinyl record, midway point of side 2 of the cassette, and song number 7 of the CD, The Frayed Ends of Sanity. So Terrence from 2004, what'd you have to say about this track?
I am sick of this song. I fucking despise The Frayed Ends of Sanity. The is so fucking stupid. And the fucking song I just cannot listen to anymore without thinking of that fear-mongering son of a bitch, Michael Savage, who also uses the riff, the dun 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 dun, dun for his coming back from commercial break. I fucking cannot stand it. That and Shortest Straw are 2 songs from this album that I would rather not ever hear ever again.
Ouch! Harsh, are we? Oh, man. Was I really that bad back then? Oh, man. God. I think what happened was listening to one of the riffs of that song on the Savage Nation every day for several years, because that's all there was on the radio. Rather than listen to terrestrial classic rock radio, I had to sit in the car with my dad listening to political talk radio, and drove me to the breaking point where I did not ever want to hear The Frayed Ends of Sanity ever again. So at the time I did that review with my old podcast, I was still trying to come off of it. But I had to listen to the album at the time. But then after that review, I put the album on the shelf for 4 long years until the remastered deluxe edition was released, and gave it a fresh listen. And my opinion on the song has changed. I went from hating this tune. I thought the song was so-so when I first heard it. Not bad, but not great either. But then I hated it because of Michael Savage, Overkill. And not talking about the band Overkill, but, overplaying on the Savage Nation. Now that I took many years away and listened to the album with a fresh pair of ears, I was like, this song is catchy. This song is awesome. And the beginning I have to have a chuckle with, because all I can think of is Robin Williams in Good Morning Vietnam going, oh, Ho Chi Minh, follow the Ho Chi Minh Trail, follow the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Oh no, don't go in there. It's Hanoi, the wicked witch of the... I'll get you, my little GI. Oh my goodness. So I have to have a sense of humor about that, And Good Morning Vietnam is one of my top 5 movies of all time now. God bless Robin Williams. But back to the song, The Frayed Ends of Sanity, which, if I'm not mistaken, was written by, wait for it, Hetfield, Ulrich, and Kirk Hammett. And the song is basically about a singer who's becoming increasingly paranoid and therefore on the brink of losing his mind. And the song was famous for the band's long-lasting refusal to ever play it live. The band would often mess with their fans by playing the intro and then changing it to Seek and Destroy or another song. It remained the only song from the band's first 5 albums to not have it played live in its entirety. Then over a quarter century later, after its initial release, after many petitions from the fans of the song to be played live, it was finally played live in Helsinki, Finland in May of 2014. Even then it was part of the Metallica by Request tour, in which the fans could vote for the songs the band would have to play. And this song is just, whew. Listening to it now, I enjoy the song. I mean, there were some things about it that, I didn't like at first. I mean, the beginning I thought was kind of silly when I first heard it as a kid. And then, hearing that every day for like 3 or 4 years, it drove me nuts. Then I take a break from it, and I go back to it now. I'm like, oh, this isn't so bad. Then I play it again. I'm like, oh yeah, now I'm digging it. You see, it's called, when you get older, you get wiser. And the fact that when I originally did this review with my old show, I was a little too harsh on this song. But like I said, the song talks about a person losing their marbles, and just, oh my goodness. But like I said, the song, Frayed Ends of Sanity, the song keeps my sanity. I've gained more sanity liking the song as I've gotten older, and gotten 20,000 years wiser. So I'm like Yoda when it comes to this song now. This song is excellent. I used to think this song was horrible, but now that I'm older and wiser, I think the song is killer and catchy. Now, Terrence, I have to forfeit back to you. Thank you, Yoda. Cameo appearance by Yoda, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my goodness, I have everybody on the show today. So now, let's go to side 4 of the record, song 4 on side 2 of the cassette tape, and song number 8 of the CD. So let's flip the vinyl record number 2 to side 4 for the near 10-minute instrumental, To Live Is To Die. So first, let's hear my 2014 counterpart talk about the tune, and see if my opinion has changed or remained the same.
To Live Is To Die, not a bad instrumental, but not Metallica's best instrumental either. I still say the greatest one has to be The Call of Cthulhu, in my opinion, with Orion, a testicle hair on par with that. To Live Is To Die, the acoustic thing, the acoustic thing could have been excised, but the guitar solo section where James Hetfield's guitar solo, where it does change keys to A minor for a moment or two, is one of the best parts of the song. And then the little poetry thing was excellent as well. But the other bits of the instrumental were just, I've heard worse.
Well, I think this instrumental, as I've gotten older, I've come to appreciate it more. I mean, I liked it initially, but then I was kind of like, as I discovered other instrumentals over the years, like, from other bands, like What, Gorilla, Los Endos, those are Genesis instrumentals, and progressive rock instrumentals, I was like, and instrumentals by Rush and Pink Floyd. I mean, those two bands right there were the kings of instrumentals. I was like, Metallica, not bad, but, like I said, at the time I said I've heard better and I've heard worse. Actually, this instrumental is amazing. As I gotten older, I love it more now than I did back then. Whew. With the acoustic guitars coming in at first, and the drums very quietly in the background. Excuse me. Very quiet, and then all of a sudden, the electric guitars kicking into this instrumental, which was a tribute to the late Cliff Burton of Metallica, written by James Hetfield, Lars Ulrich, and Cliff Burton. And the bass line is medley of unused recordings that Cliff performed prior to his death. Because the original recordings were not used in the song was credited as written by Burton and played by Newsted. And the spoken word at the end of the song was written by German poet Paul Gerhardt, but was erroneously attributed to Burton in the liner notes, which was, when a man lies, he murders some part of the world. These are the pale deaths which men miscall their lives. And then the second half of the speech was written by Cliff Burton. All this I cannot bear to witness any longer. Cannot the kingdom of salvation take me home? And the spoken word passage is one that the members of the band often recall Cliff saying. So much so that the line is marked on his grave. To Live Is To Die is the last Metallica catalog tune accredited to Cliff Burton chronologically as he was working on it prior to his passing. And for years, the song was not ever performed live. At best, only an excerpt from the melodic bridge was performed on guitars and bass during the tour following this album. And that changed in 2011, when it was performed in full for the first time ever as part of the 30 Years of Metallica Festival. And this song features during that melodic part, a guitar solo by James Hetfield. And Hetfield can play very good lead. He does play amazing lead guitar when he sees fit to it. The guitar solo on this is great. The guitar solo he did on Orion was amazing. Nothing Else Matters. That guitar solo was amazing. Yeah, I do love that tune. The cover of Turn the Page, he did the guitar solo. Not the slide guitar, but the main guitar solo. The harmony guitar, the do-do-do-do-do, and then the do-do-do-do-do. That solo was Hetfield. Pardon. So James Hetfield can play some killer tasty lead guitar. And this instrumental, amazing, awesome. I kind of said so then, but I love it more now than I did, quite a few years ago. Even I love it more now than I did as a teenager. How's that? I'm like, well, some things just grow on you. It takes a while for it to grow, but once it grows and hits you, bang, you get it, and you're like, oh man, this is epic. This is awesome. And this instrumental clocks in at 9 minutes and 49 seconds, taking up most of side 4 of the vinyl record. Boy, do I love this tune. To Live Is to Die is a song to die for. Awesome instrumental, which then sets up nicely after the acoustic guitar repeat of the intro, kind of bookending where it began on the song. It goes into the closing Dyer's Eve. And let's see what 2014 Terrence has to say about Dyer's Eve before I talk about it. Terrence from 9 years back, say what you got.
Dyer's Eve, I have to concur with you guys. I agree, it's another classic on this album, my second favorite as well. The beginning of it, you think it's going to be another Blackened, and then it just goes boom, 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 boom. And then I was thinking, when I first heard it, it was like, oh crap, is it going to be a slow song, and all of a sudden, full bludgeoning, dear mother, what is this hell you put me through? I've outgrown the fucking lullaby. I'm like, right on, James. The song just kicks ass, the lyrics kick ass, and to me, just a great way to end a different album from Metallica. And what can I say? At least the album ends on an excellent note.
Oh man, Dyer's Eve, I have to concur. Amazing track in the album, and it was written by Hetfield, Ulrich, and Kirk Hammett. And I have some more backstories about this tune. It's one of the thrashiest songs on And Justice for All, just like Blackened was, and it's the album's closer. And it takes the format of an angry, accusatory letter penned by the hand of a child whose fragile psyche was wounded during the developmental phase of his life by the very ones who were supposed to be protecting and guiding him. And they were a rant from James Hetfield himself against his own parents. His father left the family when he was only 13, and his mother passed away from cancer when he was only 16. She refused treatment because of her beliefs as a Christian Scientist, and also felt his parents had never allowed him to discover the world for himself because their religion encouraged insulating and alienating. And in my mind, some religions can be very harsh. The fundamentalists, the Baptists, the Protestants. I'm a Catholic, and I'm a proud Catholic, although I don't condone what the priests in some congregations do. But luckily, I had some good priests at the church I went to growing up as a preteen teenager. So those priests were excellent with me. They didn't do anything negative. And I did go to CCD and all that fun stuff. And I wasn't baptized until I was 12 years old, ironically enough. And I still adhere to the Catholic principles I grew up with. And know that some religions are very corrupt, like the fundamentalist buggers who call Metallica satanic. It's probably because they haven't seen the world and or have been wronged by so many people that the mortals just gave up on them. God, I sound like Jim Cornette. Anyways, James Hetfield, when he talked about the song to Rolling Stone magazine, when Rolling Stone said to James Hetfield, "You never fell into the 'I hate my parents and I hate school' cliches." He responded, quote, "There's one song I can specifically disagree with you on, Dyer's Eve. There's a lot of blame in that song. It was about me being in a cocoon, and now that I'm out on my own. Oh my God, this world is shocking me. I don't know how to deal with this stuff. I don't know how to deal with grief, poverty, confrontation. I'll live on my own after father leaving, my mother dying." And the band did not ever play the song live in its entirety until 2004's Madly in Anger with the World tour for Saint Anger at the LA Forum. But this song is a perfect bludgeoning, killer way to end the song, and it's an album ender, a closing track that leaves you wanting more. And yeah, this song does leave you wanting more. This song is just, whew. No matter how many times I've heard it over the last 30 some odd years, I still get satisfaction out of this track. Dyer's Eve, perfect way to end the album. Now let's talk about the bonus tracks, B-sides that didn't make the album that were covers. There were two songs that were also recorded during the sessions for the And Justice for All album, which were not released on the original album, but are available on the Garage Inc. 2 CD set. And the first was a cover of a Budgie song called Bread Fan that talks about the desires for money, and it was released as the B-side to the Eye of the Beholder single here in the States. And yeah, Eye of the Beholder was the first single from the album released in this country. So I had the cassette single, well, my brother had it and gave it to me, along with the one single. I basically played the B-sides more than the A-sides because I already had the album, but I wanted to hear some more tunes. And it was not on a Metallica album properly until the release of the 1998 2 CD Garage Inc. Compilation. And to me, that's an amazing covers album. Probably my favorite covers album of all time is Garage Inc. by Metallica. Disc 1 was new covers recorded in 1998, redeeming themselves from the Load and Reload disaster stroke. And then Disc 2 was covers from Garage Days Revisited, Garage Days Revisited, and all the B-sides between 1988 and 2000 and 1997. Whew. And the main differences between the two versions of the song were obvious. Budgie's was originally slower and bludgeoning, and Metallica's version, to me, is the better version. And yeah, Metallica covered a Budgie song, I believe, before, which I think was Crash Course in Brain Surgery on Garage Days Revisited, if I'm not mistaken. But, yeah. Metallica's version of, oh yeah. Yeah, it was Crash Course in Brain Surgery was done by Budgie on, originally by Budgie, and this is the second Budgie tune that Metallica covered. And Metallica did a better job with Bread Fan. Sorry, Budgie fans, but Metallica did the definitive version. And the second B-side that was recorded during the sessions for the And Justice for All album, but was again left off due to time constraints of the vinyl record, was Diamond Head's The Prince, which was the B-side to One here in the States, and it was also on the 12-inch Harvester of Sorrow EP in the UK. Whew! And I loved this cover when I first heard it as part of the One single back in fall '89. And reading the song that The Prince was done by, if I'm not mistaken, Diamond Head. Metallica are no strangers to covering Diamond Head. In fact, in 1984, they covered Am I Evil on the Creeping Death EP, and that was also released as a bonus track on the first remaster of Kill 'Em All in 1988 here in the States. So Metallica covering, what's that group? Oh yeah, Metallica covering Diamond Head for the second time in 4 years. Again, Metallica for the win with their cover of The Prince. I think it's much better than the original version. That was on Diamond Head. I think Diamond Head's version was kind of, not bad, but not noteworthy either. But Metallica's cover of it, awesome, amazing, and godly. When And Justice for All was released in September 1988, The album did something that no Metallica album had done before up to that stage. The album debuted, or actually the album was the band's first top 10 album, peaking at number 6 on the Billboard album chart without the benefit of a top 10 hit or MTV play or radio play. And this was something that a lot of people forgot about back in those days. Metallica, back in 1988, had a top 10 album without benefit of MTV play and or radio airplay. That is amazing. And the album, like I said, quickly soared to number 6 and hung on the Billboard charts for quite some time. And the album was first certified gold and platinum on Halloween 1988. Then, with my help, went double platinum on July 19th, 1989. Then it went platinum on April 1st, 1992. Then quadruple platinum on June 5th, 1995. Sextuple platinum in November of 97. As I read this thing. Septuple platinum in December of 99, and now it's octuple platinum with 8 million copies sold in the U.S. alone as of June 2003. The sales need to be recertified because of the release of the that box set that came out in 2000 and what year did that box set come out? The box set known as the And Justice for All box set, which I'll talk about in just a few moments. And And Justice for All is the second highest selling Metallica album after the Black Album, which is currently at 16 million copies, needs to be recertified, but Metallica album sales are still going strong, especially here in the good old US of A. And And Justice for All, in the grand scheme of it, is my second favorite Metallica album, after Ride the Lightning. And Justice for All is anchored at number 2. Whew. Who would have thunk that? And, what else can I say? And like I said, the album was re-released as a box set in 2018 to commemorate And Justice for All's 30th anniversary. It was released as a 2 CD, or as a single CD, 3 CD, or extravagant box set. As I look at this box set from Metallica, the And Justice for All box set, it featured, as I count this thing, 10 CDs, 4 DVDs, 3 LPs, another double LP, picture disc, you name it, it included it. So LPs 1 and 2 featured, as I read this thing, the remastered album on 2 records. LP 3 was a picture disc, which featured one in Seek and Destroy Live in Dallas, 1989. LPs 4 through 6 were Live in Seattle, 1989. Whew. And then CD 1 was the album remastered. CD 2 was interviews. CDs 3 and 4 was riffs, jams, and demos. Disc 5, CDs 3 and 4 were riffs, jams, and demos. And then Disc 5 was rough mixes from the vault. And Disc 6 and 7 was Live at the Troubadour and B-sides. Studio B-sides and what have you. As I look at this darn thing. This is just, whew. And it has a work-in-progress mix of Breadfan and The Prince, which the standard mixes are not on this box set. Actually, it's on disc number, it's on disc 7. As my brain farted, the original mixes. And then CDs 8 and 9 were Live at the Hammersmith Odeon in London, plus radio edits of 1, Eye of the Beholder, and the title track. And then CDs 10 and 11 are Live at Long Beach Arena and more. DVD 1 was and camcorders for all in the 1 video, the various videos for 1, and the performance of it from the Grammy Awards. And then DVD 2 was Live at the Shoreline Amphitheater in Mountain View, California. DVD 3 was Live at the Stone Ballroom in Newark, Delaware. And then Disc 4 was, Denmark. It was Newark, Delaware, excuse me. Just DVD 4 was Justice on Wheels, Masa Ito interviews, raw live footage, Justice on Wheels, a Much Music documentary, and DVD, and then more live footage. Oh man, a lot of killer stuff on this deluxe edition. And if you're a huge Metallica completist, you definitely should check that out. And it was, like I said, released in time for the album's 30th anniversary. And then there was a smaller 3 CD version that came out in 2018. And that features, I'm looking at this thing because I'm on Discogs, because I'm banned from Wikipedia, which I wear with a badge of honor. CD 1's the remastered album. CD 2 is demos and rough mixes. And CD 3 is from the Damaged Justice tour, which is the And Justice for All tour. And yeah, so you get like a mini, kind of a double live album on one CD, which I think they should have released a double live album from this tour, but never mind, but still great to have it anyway. And that brings us up to date with what's going on with Metallica as of late. They've just released a brand spanking new album called 72 Seasons, which I don't want to jump on the bandwagon and do a review of right now. I want to live with this album for a while, then possibly do a review on it. But yeah, I have 72 Seasons, and the album is excellent, amazing, and that's basically one of my picks of the moment, will be the brand new Metallica album, which is, as I read this thing, just bear with me, I'm going to get to 72 Seasons here. Here we are, 72 Seasons. Just released this past Friday on CD, and 72 Seasons is one of my picks of the moment. In the track listing goes the title track, Shadows Follow, Screamin' Suicide, Sleep Block My Life Away, You Must Burn, Lux Aeterna, Crown of Barbed Wire, Chasing Light, If Darkness Had a Sun, Too Far Gone, Room of Mirrors, and Inamorata. Inamorata is the closing song. And I've already played this album 2 or 3 times in the last few days. Amazing. Metallica, at least with their old age, have gone back to their roots and now basically playing what people loved about Metallica back in the day when they first discovered them. God bless them. And they're going to be touring this year and next year, doing the 72 Seasons tour and having different opening acts each place, because they're going to be doing 2 shows in each city, and the set lists are going to change. You're not going to get the same set list every night. So you'll have set list A one night, set list 2 the next night. And the first night will be Pantera and Mammoth Wolfgang Van Halen doing the opening act. And then on the second show, it's Death Valley 5 Death Finger Punch, whoever the hell they are, opening. So they're going to be playing Boston next year, and I'm tentatively considering this going. And it could be my farewell to rock concerts properly, because I haven't been to a concert in almost 5 years. And Metallica is one band I have never seen live. Believe it or not, in the years I've been a fan of them, I have not ever seen them live. And it's on a Sunday, so I think I can coerce my friend Dennis, who's also a fan of Metallica, and he also got into them with And Justice for All, to go with me to this, to sort of bookend our, and basically it would be our celebration of our 30th high school reunion anniversary. Because we're not going to a class reunion, we'll celebrate the 30th anniversary in style by seeing Metallica. And yeah, I definitely will have to go see them, because who knows, it could be my last concert I ever go to. But yeah, my picks of the moment are the aforementioned 72 Seasons, killer new album, and the box set known as the 3 CD edition of And Justice for All, which I just discussed and highly recommended. And before I go, here are some plugs for some other shows I want you to give your love to, and I will be back. I'm going to recommend some radio shows and podcasts. Rock Talk with Mitch LaFon, Chris Jericho Podcast, Y2J for the Win, Eddie Trunk Podcast, and the Raconteurs with Guy Pratt and Gary Kemp from Nick Mason's Saucer Full of Secrets. Also going to recommend the following YouTube channels: Professor of Rock, his channel always wins. John Bodin and his classic rock channels on YouTube, he's also awesome. Mike Noland and his classic rock channels, always great to watch his videos. He tells it like it is, or it was, and he's one boomer that kicks, to quote the Marine Corps, recon ass oorah. Or as they say in the Marine Corps, oorah. God bless the Marines. God bless the military. Melinda Murphy, despite the fact she's attached to one of my enemies, I leave nameless. Also, thank you to Brandon Snyder. His channel, always awesome. Lazarus' YouTube channel. Classic Rock Review with Barry. Another great channel. Darren Locke. How can anyone hate Darren Locke? It's humanly impossible. And lastly, my favorite, Pete Pardo, Sea of Tranquility, in his various videos, In the Prague Seat, Hudson Valley Squares, you name it. His channel, always awesome. His videos always rule. And, yeah, and Pete, I can say this from the bottom of my heart. Your Mets did deserve that World Series back in 1986 when that ball went through Bill Buckner's legs. So I am a humble man saying, yeah, our Red Sox dropped the ball literally. And your Mets were the better team that year. So before I go, here's some plugs for other podcasts and radio shows I want you cool fans of mine to give your love to. And to quote General MacArthur, I shall return.
Mistress Carey reporting for duty. That's right, after rocking the airwaves in Boston for 22 years on WAAF, welcome to the Mistress Carey podcast. And if you love rock, this weekly podcast is for you. I'll introduce you to new bands that I think you are going to love and keep you in touch with the bands that are already your favorites. I'll take you backstage and expose you to the people behind the rock. Plus, we'll talk about everything else that we know and love, like motorcycles, tattoos, skydiving, hot rods, food, booze, and so much more. And let's not forget all of the branches of our military, our veterans, and first responders. Everything you know and loved about the Mistress Carey show, but now I'm unfiltered and uncensored. Fuck yeah! And if you never heard me before, well, welcome to the party. Subscribe now so you don't miss Mistress Carey podcast.
Please state the nature of the medical emergency.
Brain damage with Pink Floyd.
This stuff can give you brain damage.
The Pink Floyd radio show.
Use only as directed.
There is no downside in the moon, really. Matter of fact, it's all just...
Your controls are set to the Random Precision Radio Network. This is Floydian Slip, an hour of Pink Floyd. I'm Craig Bailey. Find us online at FloydianSlip.com. Write to us at pink at FloydianSlip.com. Floydian Slip is a Random Precision production.
You're listening to Nights with Alice Cooper. I think my Speedo is starting to cut off the flow of oxygen to my head. And that's why I got so
temperamental with anyone who has the impertinence to question his wisdom and, hello, out pops his inner courier.
Hi, and welcome to In the Studio. Redbeard here with the stories behind history's greatest rock and roll albums.
You're welcome. Guitar up. 1, 2, 3.
Follow In the Studio on Facebook, at Redbeard Rocks on Twitter, and online at inthestudio.net.
Well, my friends, the classic rock brainiac has got to give his brain a rest right now, but I thank you all for listening and watching this excellent review on Metallica's And Justice for All. I apologize if my younger self was swearing like a sailor, but he was still learning on what the hell to do on a show, and how much I've grown in 9 years as a human being, unlike some people's chagrin. And come back soon. I got more episodes coming on. And then there were 3 by Genesis, re-updated, re-uploaded. Houses of the Holy by Led Zeppelin. Kiss Destroyer, so many other albums I got to do, and there's some other old but new episodes I'm going to be re-editing, retooling, revising. Cuts Like a Knife by Bryan Adams, an all brand new episode. I'm going to be recording that as well to prove my classic rock brainiac status. Not just saying it for kicks and giggles either. But as always, I thank you all for listening and tuning on in. I love each and every one of you. And my final words are, don't take shit from assholes, especially if they're stuck in high school. I love you all. You all rule. Thanks for listening. Good night. God bless you.
Terrence's Classic Rock Corner podcast was written, edited, produced, so forth and so on by yours truly, the classic rock brainiac, Terrence Reardon. The intro and outro music is Confrontation by Craig Seafan, taken from the film soundtrack to the movie Thief. Copyright 2023, TJR Rocksponge Incorporated, all rights reserved. Once again, thanks for listening and or watching. I love you all. Good night. God bless you.